All right, I am excited to be spending the next hour together with all of you today in our workshop on the journey to college and career. For today's session, we will be starting with a quick introduction about who we are and our work at RISE. We can go to the next slide, please. We will then be discussing setting the groundwork for college and career starting in grade 9, followed by a small group activity to get to know each other and our wonderful panelists. And then we will go over some resources and briefly spend the rest of our time asking our panelists some questions. Our goal for today's session is to provide you as families and students with resources and information to collaborate with your individual school and community. Our goal is to ensure your family has the foundation to begin the journey to college and career starting now during grade 9. Before we get started, I would like to cover some Zoom housekeeping. First, I would like to welcome those joining by phone call today. If you choose to use your phone today, please know that we will be giving you a chance to participate later on in today's session if you're able. If you would like to unmute during our panel, please select *9 to raise your hand and then *6 to unmute. For those of you joining by Zoom on your computer or on your phone, we ask that you stay muted during most of the session. Next, you're invited to keep your camera on if you are able to. As I mentioned, the recording will mostly only have me and the presentation. And lastly, we ask that you use the chat to ask questions. You can find the chat at the bottom of your screen. And throughout the session, our RISE team member, Peter, can answer anything that comes up. Now I'd love to tell you a little bit about myself and about RISE. My name is Joanna Rendon Ledesma. I am RISE's Family and Community Engagement Specialist. I support our schools in engaging families and also support our families directly in workshops like this one. I am especially excited for today's session because I, along with my family, once navigated the college process for the first time as an immigrant family, and I know firsthand how complicated the process can seem. I, along with RISE, am eager to support all families who are approaching this process. Now I'd love to tell you a little bit about the RISE Network. RISE is a nonprofit organization based in New Haven. We are committed to supporting student success in and beyond high school. We partner with 10 high schools across 9 school districts, which means we represent over 14,000 students, many of them on the call today. Over the past 5 years, we've worked closely with students and educators to strengthen high school programs, and we're excited to expand the network to include all of you, parents and families who play such a key role supporting student success. At RISE, we have 2 main focus areas. As a statewide community, we focus on improving student outcomes and closing opportunity gaps. We do this by supporting strong middle to high school transitions and freshman success, as many of you have experienced this year. We also partner with RISE schools to help all students not only graduate within 4 years, but graduate with a plan for college, career, and life success. Our mission at RISE is to help all students realize and achieve their full potential. Today, we're excited to bring together our 2 focus areas to begin the journey to college and career in grade 9. First, I would like to start with the statistic at the top right of the screen. By 2025, which, believe it or not, will be when many of the students on this call today will be making decisions about what comes next after high school. 70% of the jobs in Connecticut will require education beyond high school. There are many options for what education beyond high school can look like. In our red circles, we can see a few of our options. These include 2-year colleges such as NCC, 4-year colleges such as UConn or universities across the country, as well as continuing to trade schools or pursuing military opportunities. Many students may also decide on a combination of 2 of our circles, such as pursuing military and a 4 or 2-year school. Since that decision would be too difficult to make right now in grade 9, we want students to have the foundation to keep their options open when their junior and senior year come along and they are ready to make that decision. In order to do that, we want to make sure that students start preparing in grade 9. I like to think of these bubbles as the priorities that students and families are juggling in order to ensure students can make the best post-high school decision. As you can see, there are many priorities of different sizes. The reason that some are bigger than others is because the bigger ones require more attention during grade 9. Today, we're going to go over all of them, beginning with the largest bubble, which is on track. As you may have heard in your school, we believe in the importance of on track all the time. On track helps students ensure that they are not only on track to promote to 10th grade, but also on track to graduate in 4 years and pursue education after high school. First is attendance. It is crucial for students to attend class in whatever capacity that looks like this year. It may mean signing into class from home or making sure students are not missing more than 2 days a month from school. Next is behavior, which is closely related to attendance. We want to make sure students get the most time learning in the classroom and building relationships with teachers and peers. Last is courses, which has 2 parts, grades and credits. Grades are crucial so that students can pass their classes, and even more so for setting long-term goals of gaining grades that are B's or better to ensure they're prepared for college and career. Last is credits. Credits are not only crucial to make sure students are promoting to grade 10, but that they get their own bubble in our priorities, because when it comes to transcripts and pursuing post-high school education, we have enough credits to allow students to have all of their options available to them. As families, it is important for us to keep in mind what each school's requirements are for passing classes and earning credits. It is important to keep an eye on report cards, such as this one, so that we can work with students to course correct along the way, like in this case, making a plan to tackle algebra, gym class, and science. Next, we get to talk about the most fun of our priorities in grade 9, which is out of school time. There are many reasons to pursue out of school time activities that aren't just for resume building. Personally, this is what led to my own interest in education. First, we want all students to explore their opportunities and interests. Getting involved in sports, volunteer roles, and jobs means figuring out what you like and, more importantly, what you don't like. Next, we want you to be able to enrich your academic experience. Real-world application will help with the classes that you're taking, as well as supporting learning outside of the class. Next is diverse opportunities. We want students to try all kinds of out-of-school activities, ranging from robotics club to dance class or volunteering at a local museum. However, balance is key, and we understand that families have competing responsibilities, and colleges and universities understand that as well. So it is okay for students to pick a few that they like and also hold responsibilities such as helping out at home or having a job after school. One thing that I will add is that it's not too late to get involved now. Colleges and universities understand that COVID has canceled many activities, and there are still many opportunities for the summer and beyond. So now back to juggling our priorities. Since we have covered the large bubbles of on-track, credits, and out-of-school time, we will now cover the smaller ones of college application and finances. I will now give a preview to these two. For all of the post-high school pathways that we discussed, there is typically an application process. In this chart, we are using the pathways of college and university to describe the different components. On the right, we have a checklist of what comes with the process of applying for college. At the top, we have FAFSA, the application filled out by parents and students to apply for federal aid, including grants and scholarships from schools in addition to loans. Although finances can be a big stressor for families, especially now in the midst of much economic distress, we want to make sure families understand that finances should never be a barrier to achieving post-high school education. Regardless of immigration status, schools and communities have resources, aid, and programs to ensure all students can attend college. Additionally, other components of the application process require fees, such as SAT testing and common applications. However, the College Board and schools offer fee waivers, so families don't have the additional financial barrier associated with testing and applications. There are many components to the application process, such as testing, resumes, letters of recommendation, and transcripts. However, within our school community, we have many individuals committed to supporting students throughout the process, and we want students to begin building relationships with those individuals now. In our schools, teachers, administrators, on-track coordinators, and school counselors are there to connect students with the resources they need to be set up for success starting in grade 9. They are also there to support families to make sure that students are on track and are always available to answer any questions. We even have a few of them on our call today. In the larger community, there are also many individuals and resources. That includes community organizations. They are wonderful resources for family needs, but also for finding summer and volunteer opportunities. Local scholarship programs help students pursue higher education and provide resources for local families. And last is all of you, families. With so many resources available, the role of families is to support students on staying on track, but also in having conversations on setting goals and encouraging students to get involved. Welcome back, everyone. I hope that you had a great group discussion and started goal-setting conversations that will continue after today. Before we head into our panel, I wanted to share this list of resources that we will be emailing you all this week. These resources have been compiled to assist with the priorities that we discussed today. They include interactive checklists, explanation of finances for college, as well as some search engines for volunteer opportunities in Connecticut. If you have questions about your specific school or your own circumstances, you are welcome to text or email me. You can see that information on the bottom, and I will connect you with the resources at your school. So now to the best part of today's session, our panel. In a second, we will hear from our wonderful panelists. We have Lorenzo Chavez from Hartford Public High School, Abby Marcantonio from Platt High School, Ari Meadows from Brian McMahon High School. But before we head into that, I'd love to go over our format for today's panel. I will begin with some questions that were submitted by all of you for our panelists. And after that, we will open it up to answer any questions that you may all have submitted in the chat at the bottom of your screen. If we are not able to get to your question today, I will make sure to save the chat and get back to you with an answer this week. Now we're going to start by going around to our panelists and get to know them a little bit better. Ari, we'll start with you.
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here this evening with all of you. Again, my name is Ari Meadows. I am the College and Career Coordinator at Brian McMahon. I am a native of Norwalk, so I'm glad to be back at home. For the last couple of years prior to starting at Brian McMahon, I lived in Queens and worked in East Harlem. So again, it feels good to be back home. And I am a first-gen college student. So that's one of the reasons that I'm really passionate about doing the work that I do and working with students. I went to Norwalk High School, had a great guidance counselor. But as you know, at public schools, there's just not the capacity to really provide that one-on-one support to students. So although I had a great guidance counselor, there were aspects of my process, like the financial aid process, that I really needed more support with and didn't get. So I'm hoping that having been in this role for the last several years, I've been able to support a lot of students and navigate the process.
Thank you so much, Ari. We're excited to have you back in Norwalk. Abby, I'll pass it over to you.
Hi, everyone. It's great to meet you. Abby Marcantonio. I'm the College and Career Coordinator at Platt High School in Meriden. I also grew up in Meriden, so it is a little bit like coming home as well. I've been in this role now for just about 8 years, and I worked in higher education before, so I came from the side of college admissions. So this is kind of like the best of all those worlds in one in this current job.
We are excited to have you today, Abby. And Lorenzo, I'll pass it to you.
Thank you, Johanna. So hello, everyone. Thank you to my group again for your participation. My name is Lorenzo Chavez. I am in year 2 of being a school counselor at Hartford Public High School. Prior to that, I was a paraprofessional for 3 years in Putnam, Connecticut, where I live. And prior to that, I was in the Navy for 9.5 years. I am also a first generation college graduate, but my path started exactly 20 years ago this year, to where I was unable to stay in college because I did not know the financial process. And so I had to leave college after my first semester. And, you know, people will say it was because of partying or anything. It was not. I had a 3.8 GPA. I just couldn't, you know, fund it. So, yeah, that's very personal to me, because I know what it's like to have to go to college and then have to leave after a semester, and that heartbreak that I felt, and changed kind of my life and everything like that. So it's kind of a big inspiration for me to do the work that I do with the kids that I work with. So I appreciate all of you being here and trying to get more information.
Thank you, Lorenzo, and I'm so excited to have all three of your perspectives on the call today. So Abby, my first question is for you. And it is a question from a parent. What advice do you have for me as a parent as we navigate preparing for college and career during COVID?
So COVID has changed a lot of things. Certainly we saw it with the class of 2020, and it's changed a little bit how we're doing things this year with the class of 2021. But I do think that the main milestones and directives around your post-high school planning are the same. So we may have changed a little bit how we're doing that work, but I think that the same things are still really important. Academics, I tell every ninth grader, you know, what you're doing right now really matters. I think a lot of students and families sometimes think that your senior year, okay, now it's senior year, I better get serious because I'm going to start applying to colleges. But in reality, colleges are looking at your transcript, your GPA from your freshman, sophomore, and junior year, that cumulative. So it's really important to focus on your academics. And that's kind of priority. I do have conversations about it. It's important to be reflective. It's time to start really thinking about what you're good at, but also what you're not good at, like understanding your strengths and your weaknesses. We really start to dive into that work and that discussion with students when trying to decide and understand, you know, maybe what they want to study. You may not have to pick a major and know what you want to be when you grow up, when you graduate and you take that next step, maybe into college or into a trade school or an apprenticeship program. You certainly should have some understanding of what you're really good at and maybe what you're not good at, and being really honest with yourself.
Thank you so much, Abby. I definitely had that experience. Math was not my strong suit. Ari, my next question is for you. What are some conversations that we can begin to have now at home as parents and students to help decide our next steps after high school graduation?
Yes, so I would first say to just be very encouraging to your students. I think that encouraging them to be self-advocates for themselves, to speak with teachers and counselors about potential career options. Of course, when they're in ninth grade, they may have no idea what they want to do after high school, but they are starting to figure out what it is that they enjoy, what classes they enjoy taking, what they're growing more interested in and more passionate about. So I think just really encouraging them to kind of have those conversations. As I mentioned, I was a first generation student, and my mom didn't necessarily know each subject and how it correlated to certain career paths. So that's why it's really important for them to be able to utilize different resources available to them at school and different individuals to kind of talk to about that. And also, colleges do understand that the transition from middle school to high school is one that, you know, is tough at times and requires an adjustment. But ninth grade is also a year to kind of build that strong foundation of study skills, organization skills, self-advocacy, strong work ethic. So again, just to encourage students to utilize what's available to them at school and to use their voice.
Thank you so much, Ari. Lorenzo, this is a student question. This year has been really difficult as a student. If a student is having difficulty with grades and credits in ninth grade, what can we do to ensure we have all the opportunities available to us after graduation?
That's a great question from a student. And so the first thing I'm going to tell you is take a deep breath. All right, you're going to be all right. You know, this is a time unlike any other, as you've probably heard a million times. And to even piggyback off of what Ari and Abby have said, like your whole time in college, your whole time in high school is going to be reviewed, not just your freshman year, how well you did, right? There's so many things that happen freshman year, sophomore year, junior year that could affect, you know, your grades or anything and all that. So just take a deep breath. You'll be all right. You know, find people that you trust and build relationships with them and let them help you. So really ask for help. Whoever you need to ask for help from, if it's your parents, if it's a classmate, if it's a teacher, if it's a counselor, an administrator, whoever, don't be afraid to ask for help. We do have a stigma in our society where asking for help is a weakness. And you know what? It is not a weakness. Nobody gets to where they're at without asking for help. I know I've had to ask for help. I still ask for help. A lot of times it's opening jars because my wife is much stronger than I am. No, just kidding. But you got to ask for help, and you got to advocate for yourself. It's a really important skill to learn. I think almost the most important skill is to learn how to advocate for yourself as a freshman. Saying that you need the help, and then figuring out the people who are going to be there to help you through it.
Definitely. Can't stress enough how important that is. And I see that some questions are coming in, so we'll definitely be focusing on those in a little bit. Abby, my next question is for you, and it's about testing. We are concerned about the importance of testing, ACTs and SATs. How important do you think this will be in 4 years, and what can we do now to prepare?
So that is a great question. My answer on the SATs and the ACTs is a lot of people just associate it with your entrance exam into college. And in some cases, and for some colleges and universities, that's the case. We saw a lot of test optional, schools go test optional this year. So I'm really actually very curious to see what it's going to look like moving forward. And if some of those colleges will continue with that policy. But the importance of it really isn't going to change. So I tell students all the time, the SAT scores, yes, can help in some cases if it's required for admission. But if it's not required and a school is test optional, those scores can help you with placement. So for example, at a 2-year college, if you decide to attend a community college, it's not required to have SAT scores, but those SAT scores can waive any other testing or prerequisites you might have to take to get into a college level, English or math class. So taking the SAT very seriously, even if you're not headed to a 4-year college, I think is really important. I have the same conversation with our students who are on a pathway to enlist into the military. The ASVAB exam is a required exam for students to head into the military. And if you're doing ASVAB test prep, you're doing SAT prep. So the verbal and the math skills that you're prepping for that military exam really looks very much like your SAT prep. So those verbal and math skills can really benefit you, even if it's not just college admission. So I think kind of just changing the view on how those are used is really important. And then I know within the RISE network at all of the high schools, and I know so many are represented here tonight, there's lots of opportunities. I know many are offering SAT prep classes during the school day with teachers, and there's a lot of SAT boot camps after school. I know I wish the numbers were high. I can speak higher at Platt. A lot of high school students don't get super excited about after school SAT prep, but there's pizza and snacks. And I think understanding the benefits of how it can truly help you to make some of those post-high school steps easier is really important.
Thank you so much for your insight, Abby. Ari, this year with COVID, it has been really difficult to participate in extracurricular activities. How will this impact my college application?
Great question. So COVID has impacted all walks of life for daily life for everyone. And I think one thing that's important to note is that admissions counselors are going to definitely be looking at how did students use this new normal, at least for this time, and how did they use this time to essentially show grit, show creativity, show drive, and how did they take these times that seemed really constraining and use it as an opportunity to learn and grow and evolve as individuals. So I am very optimistic that luckily for our freshmen, they will still have quite a bit of time over the course of their high school career to still be able to participate in extracurricular activities. But colleges, again, just want to see also that students are making the best of the situation, are still showing grit and determination. And I also just want to note that things like family contributions is something that does count. So if during these unprecedented times, students had to do a lot more at home, such as caring for siblings or helping sick relatives, those are all things that will be able to be added on their Common App as well.
Thank you so much, Ari. Definitely important to keep those in mind. Lorenzo, many families have been impacted by the economic crisis. What options do families have if we are not able to save for college right now?
Well, thank you, Johanna. I get the big one. I get the finances, right? How do we get our kids to where we want them to go? And if you were in my room, I shared out that I am the father of a senior right now. I actually have a junior as well. So it's a big deal for me. How do I get my kid to school with the least amount of debt, which we're all concerned about? And to tell you the honest truth, I don't know. Unless you are independently wealthy and you started saving right away, the chances are, even still, you might have to get more money in loans and everything like that, right? Because the way the education is rising compared to how much everything is, it's just tough. So I apologize for being like a downer on it, but it's just being real with it, because I mean, like I said, I'm going through it, and I know it's very important. So, but there are many things to do, right? So let's look at maybe one of the most fiscally responsible pathways right now is to go to a community college, right? The state of Connecticut has pledged, they call it Pledge to Advance Connecticut. It's called the PACT, right? And they're offering to last dollar funding is what it's called, to go to community college. And there's several community colleges to go there for free, essentially, after whatever aid that the government gives you through the FAFSA, which I probably should have started off with, but the free application for federal student aid. And that's where the government is going to look at your finances as a family and decide how much you can support your student going to college, right? And it's in the form of this thing called the estimated family contribution, EFC, or sorry, expected family contribution. And so based on that number, the government is going to say, we can give you this much money in aid, normally in the form of a Pell Grant, which is something that you do not have to pay back. So we've got a grant you don't pay back, the government can give you. The government will also offer you loans based on your FAFSA as well. There's parent loans and there's student loans. And they don't allow the student to borrow much from the government. I actually just found that out. I wasn't aware of that there's caps on that. So, which might lead you to outside loan resources, which I would, if you can, avoid those, because they're just not as good as a government loan. But obviously, again, we want to support our children and provide them the best opportunities possible. Like I said, my daughter's dream is to go to San Diego State, where she's going, so we got to deal with the cost of that. Although I will say this, an out-of-state resident, like I am, to go to the university, to San Diego State University, is $43,000. UConn's out-of-state tuition is $53,000. So put that into your guys' mind, to go all the way to San Diego, 3,000 miles away, beautiful weather, essentially like we have right now all the time, $10,000 cheaper. But luckily you live in Connecticut, so just anyone you know, if you ever meet UConn from out of state, be like, yo, you could have gone to the San Diego State for $10,000 cheaper. But sorry, I have to get off that. So there's that's through the government. Scholarships is the big one, right? There's a question of how do you get scholarships? There's so many ways to get scholarships. There are literally millions of people and organizations that just want to give you money, all right? But how do you do that? There's applications, there's essays, there's just being a certain type of person, an athlete, a dancer, a musician, having Italian descent, having a family member that works in a union, or like there's like scholarships galore that people just want to give you money. But, and I'll tell you this, they are hard work, because it's free money, right? But nothing in this life is free. You have to put the work into these essays and scholarships to do the search for it. What else did I have on my list of stuff I was talking about?
And I will also add that we just had a great resource shared by Val that we'll make sure to email all of you as well. So our resource list also has a ton of opportunities for scholarships, as well as financial aid resources too.
Yes, thank you. So also, I apologize, there's a lot of stuff that goes into finances, and I forewarned Johanna that I could be a little extra winded just so I can cover some bases here. So we talked about scholarships. oh, one of the easiest scholarships is offered through the College Board. It's called the Opportunity Scholarship. You don't really have to do much for it. You know, you can add a college to your list. You can just improve or practice your SAT, and you'll get entered into like a raffle to, you know, earn some money towards your college education. And you can start those in your junior year. I believe is when you can start those in your junior year. But just doing anything like that, you find them available. Again, people just want to give money to you. You just have to be dedicated to finding that money. I talked about the pact. Oh, this is something that I just came across recently, and it's something that was pushed to me in the military. It's called CLEP, and it's college level, what does the E stand for? College level examination program, all right? And there's an organization out there called Modern States where you can go into this and you can take a course free that will prepare you to take a test, right? I'll actually put that link in when I'm done talking. And so essentially what you can do is you can test out of some college classes by doing the CLEP, which means the less classes you have to take in college, the less money you have to spend, the less time you have to go there. So being smarter and working hard outside of school will also get you there. Then there's also advanced placement. So an advanced placement class is it's a college level class that you would take a test in at the end of the course, normally in May. If you do well enough on that test, you can, I'll answer your question, Andre, about the military. If you do well enough on that test, that a college may take that credit. Again, not all colleges do, but the vast majority do. And I think you'll actually be kind of hard pressed to find a college that will not accept AP credits, but they do exist. So you got to be wary of that. And then lastly, I don't know if we have any families who are undocumented or are concerned about their status in this country. We have a great organization in Connecticut called CT for a Dream that will help you out. I believe it's one of the resources that is going to be shared. There are great people there to help you and your family figure out how to maybe, you know, get citizenship status or whatever things are out there for you. There's it's called the ACTIS. I forget what that stands for. There's a lot of acronyms in education, but essentially it's like the FAFSA for another acronym for undocumented students. I really thought when I got out of the Navy that I would be away from acronyms, and I found out that's not the case. I think that is all I got. I know that was a lot of stuff. I actually did put what it stands for. It's the aid application for Connecticut undocumented students. I tried to be prepared. But if you don't mind, if I can answer Andre's question, because it does kind of go into paying for college.
Yes, definitely. Andre's question is, how much does the military pay for college?
All right, so I benefited from the military. Thank you. It's called the GI Bill. And what the GI Bill does, it will pay 36 months of your college education. And the new bill, the post 9/11 GI Bill, if you do your 4 years of time, you get out with an honorable discharge, you get that 36 months. And they will also pay you to go to school. I got paid to go to school, which was really nice, and it's based on where you live, or actually where your school is. So I went to UConn, so they paid me a housing allowance based on UConn, which was nice. It wasn't great, but it was most definitely helpful through that. So there's that, but also in the state of Connecticut and many other states, they do tuition waivers for veterans. So after that 36 months was up, I could go to any of the state schools tuition free. So that still means that there's other fees involved, but the biggest one, the tuition, is covered. So it's a really great path to go if you want to choose the military. I would definitely love to speak to you about it. And yeah, I think that's all I got. No more questions for me, Joanna.
Thank you so much, Lorenzo. I have a few more questions, but if you have any questions, please make sure to put them in the chat and we'll get to them before we close at 7. Abby, my next question is for you. Can you tell us a little bit about what opportunities your students have pursued when choosing their post-high school path?
So there's a lot of opportunities, and we tend to focus on, 4-year college pathway, whether that be 4 or 2-year college. trade and apprenticeship, which could include like a technical school, military, and the workforce. So at where I am at Platte High School, it's actually, we have almost 70% of our students who are considering some kind of college. And then the rest would make up our technical school, trade students, military, and the workforce. Our biggest goal, and I would say is really at all of the high schools, is making sure that you have a plan and that you have clear action steps for what that plan looks like. We do a lot of work as a junior year, but we start building in 9th grade. So we start, like we said earlier, of what are you good at, maybe what you're not so good at, what do you like to do, and what careers or just majors kind of surround that, then kind of building into that. Well, okay, if you're interested in that, where would you have to go to be able to become what you're thinking that you're interested in? So yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities. We see a lot of our kids now, we've started to say education and training is really important. A lot of people start to say like, oh, well, I'm not really college bound, or I'm not sure if I want to go to college. That's okay. When I refer to college, I'm talking education and training, which we know is really needed for a lot of jobs and careers out there right now. So we've been working with a lot of our kids this year into looking for a certificate program, something that's going to give you some credentialing, that's going to give you more opportunities once you graduate with your high school degree.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Abby. Ari, what are some examples of what students can do with their out of school time this summer and next year?
Yes. So I would definitely recommend looking within your communities, whether that be a church community, community centers like the Carver Center here in Norwalk, looking at libraries that have like a lot of resources as well. Just really trying to utilize different connections and resources available to kind of find volunteering opportunities, potential job shadowing opportunities, any online internships that there might be based on some growing interest. And I know sometimes for students and families, you may be thinking like, well, I don't necessarily know anyone that's, that works in the path or the career fields or the industry that I'm interested in, or my family doesn't. And that's a great opportunity to connect with your school counselor, or if your school also has a college and career coordinator at your school, to kind of just talk about some of your growing interests. Oftentimes, these different opportunity programs will reach out to school counselors and kind of talk about different opportunities and the type of student they're looking for. So again, if a student is kind of expressing some of those interests, their school counselor could definitely keep them in mind and recommend them for some of these programs. Another thing that I know was something that I did when I was in high school. I think back to my summers and when I would travel a bit, even if it was just a few states away to visit some family. I had a cousin that was a couple of years older than me. So she kind of was obviously ahead in her college process. And whenever we kind of did some summer travel, she would kind of look to see what colleges and what schools were around in the area. And even though it was summertime and you couldn't get that real school feel, it was good to kind of just, even for me, who was, in 8th or 9th grade when she was going through her, junior year and getting ready for that, really to kick off her college process. I kind of ignited something in me and allowed me to see my options and kind of gave me something to work towards and to really inspire to do. So that's also something that is an option for over the summer as well. And then I know specifically for Norwalk, and I'm sure a lot of other towns and cities have it as well. In Connecticut, there's a Mayor's Summer Youth Employment Program, SYEP, and that's something that is available to students if they're interested in summer employment. The deadline specifically for Norwalk is the 9th of April, and that's something where they pay about $12 an hour. It's for a couple of months for students to engage with something that they're interested in their community as well. And then in terms of next year, I would encourage students to continue or to start, if they haven't, in their freshman year, to participate in a class, ask questions, and continue to kind of explore and figure out what they're interested in, as well as potentially joining clubs. This was something that I mentioned in my breakout room, is that colleges like to see quality over quantity. So if there's not a lot of clubs that students are necessarily interested in, but there's one or two that they really grow passionate about, to join one or two of those clubs and to, you know, colleges like to see where they may have started off, you know, as just a member of that club, and by their senior or junior year, they are, you know, in a leadership position that shows colleges consistency. And even if you know, students decide not to go to a 4 or 2-year school, these are still things that they're able to kind of talk about on job interviews as well. So these are some of the ways that students can participate and do different things this summer as well as next year.
Thank you so much. Those were all wonderful. I especially like visiting the schools if you're away on vacation. Abby, my next question is for you. In addition to what we discussed today, what else can parents and students do if they choose that 2 or 4-year college is their career path? So what can they start doing now?
So I don't really think it's ever too soon to start kind of doing a college search. We are very lucky here in Connecticut to have a really strong community college system, and we have several. I think there's 12 community colleges in the state of Connecticut. I know for our students in Meriden, we're about 30 minutes from 6 different community colleges. So it's a lot of options. So we try to encourage them sooner than later to understand what programs are available. The campuses are different, and again, try to figure out what might be the best fit for them. It would be the same thing about 4-year college. You know, I don't think it's too soon. We try to bring all of our 10th graders, you know, to visit a college campus. I think, you know, doing that over a school vacation or in the summertime, or looking, they have a lot of enrichment programs. That's going to start to expose you to different campuses, and you'll be able to find things that you really like, and then maybe things you didn't like so much. And then it's kind of cool when you go to the next one, you're like, oh, the last school had that. And I'm so glad this one does, because I really like that. You know, college, yes, it's about your getting your degree and your academics, but that's also going to be your home in a lot of cases for up to 4 years. So you want to make sure that it's a place that you're really comfortable and you feel like you can be successful there. So, you know, I talked about, I do think all the things that everybody mentioned tonight, being organized freshman year, you know, really trying to set a strong foundation. What you're doing, again, really matters this year. But it's not too soon to start exploring. If some of you may have Naviance at your schools, you know, connecting with your school counselor, asking them, hey, I really kind of want to, you know, learn more. I'm kind of excited to see, you know, what might be a good fit, or what the next few years are going to look like for me and after college. They want to help you. They're going to want to expose you to those resources that your school has available to you. So, you know, I know that's how our team is at Platt, and I know that's exactly how the team is in Brian McMahon and at Hartford and all the other districts. So make sure that you're using those resources in schools too, and reaching out to them directly.
Thank you so much, Abby. I definitely agree that all of our teams at our 10 schools are there to support students in any way they can. In a few moments, Peter is going to be sharing a couple of poll questions before we head to our last question, if no one else has any questions in the chat. In those polls, we're just looking for a little bit of insight on how the session was, how helpful it was to all of you. So now I will ask my last question to Ari. Looking forward to grade 10 and thinking about the importance of credits, what can my child do as they begin deciding which classes to take next year?
Great question. So each high school has graduation requirements, as well as a course book to kind of know the options that are available for students to take and what subjects they fall under. So I would encourage students to look through that, and to also, you know, talk about that with their families, and then schedule a meeting with their school counselor to kind of discuss it in more depth, or to ask any questions that they may have. I would also recommend students to know for sure when their deadline is for course selections. Right now at Brian McMahon, that's something that our students are currently going through, and our counselors have been having those meetings with students for the last few weeks now. So just ensuring that they're aware of those deadlines, and that they are making the best decisions when choosing classes. Another thing I want to note is it's important to kind of think about the rigor of the classes that they're taking as well, and what each school has to offer for them. So, you know, the honors classes that are available, the AP classes that are available, if there's an IB program at your school, and what it takes to be able to be recommended for those classes, or even if you weren't recommended for them, how you can advocate for yourself as a student to be in those classes. Because colleges do look at not only, you know, your grades on a transcript, but the type of classes that you take. And an A in a regular class versus an A in, you know, a higher level class holds weight. And sometimes even an A in a regular class versus a B sometimes, you know, in an honors or AP class and higher level class, kind of shows them that you're really putting in the hard work and the effort. And that's something that colleges like to see. And if students are really feeling ambitious, another thing that they might want to do is start to think about and try to map out some potential courses that they would even like to take in the future to make sure that they're fulfilling their graduation requirements, to kind of parallel that with their graduation requirements and a graduation plan. And then kind of what Abby had mentioned as well, it's not too early to start researching schools. And along with researching schools, that might mean reaching out to admissions counselors, or at least going on websites to see what colleges and trade schools and programs kind of recommend in terms of like 4 years of this, you know, type of subject and 3 years of this subject, so that students can ensure that they're not only meeting their high school's requirements, but the schools that they're interested in applying to, they're also meeting those requirements as well. And of course, if students are confused by that and need help navigating that process, always reach out to their school counselor and individuals available to support them with that.
Thank you so much, Ari. That was wonderful. I want to thank Lorenzo, Abby, and Ari for taking the time to join our panel tonight. And I want to especially thank all of you for joining and taking that first or second step in the journey to college and career. Later this week, we will be emailing you all with the resources, some of the slides, as well as contact information so that you can stay in the loop for everything that's happening